Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I am Justin Mason, lead fantasy writer and analyst at friendsoffantasybenefits.com. Joining me on this episode is not just Dave McDonal, but we have two titans of the Earth Leagues. We have the number one overall player this year, Ryan Ireland, and we have the number two overall player, Dustin McComas, joining us. We'll start with you, Dave, since you are a co-host. How you doing, my friend? Where can people reach you at? And are you doing any work these days?
I'm good. It was probably one of the lesser stressful ends of the season, like in good and bad ways. Like I was still profitable, but like in other years I had some big sweats with some big leagues that came down to the last day. It was a little bit less so this year, so kind of good, kind of bad there. In Earth there was absolutely no sweating. I just got my ass handed to me. I've never
we'll get there.
I know I've never done so bad. I know, but it's like, oh my god, so bad. But yeah, just pumped to be back here with you guys, and I'm not currently working on anything, and just kind of taking a couple of weeks off before we got first pitch Arizona coming up soon, but before that I'm just kind of taking a little time off right now.
Nice. And Dustin, how you doing, my friend? Good to have you back on the pod. Remind everybody where you can be reached and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. It honestly doesn't feel like it's been that long since I hopped on and talked about the draft and things like that. But you can follow me on Twitter at Dustin L. McComas. I work for a baseball company called 5 Tool that runs a bunch of kind of like fall and summer club events and do a lot of media coverage and covering amateur baseball around the state of Texas and in some other states as well. So I am a baseball junkie through and through, and also definitely obsessed with the fantasy baseball side of things as well. But it was an okay year for me. Frustrating. Won a couple leagues. In July, I thought I was gonna just have a fantastic year. Some things fell apart, and then I lose Earth the last week to Ryan in our battle, just back and forth. I felt like I could tell whichever team had multiple pitchers going that day usually kind of shot back up the rankings a little bit. And we were talking before we hopped on here. We couldn't see each other's teams, so like there was no element of like I got to root against these pitchers or what. Do we have the same guys or what was going on there? So it kind of flying pretty blind, but. No, it was great, and thanks for having me back. And Dave, congrats on a profitable year, and Justin, you especially. I know you were frustrated after last year, man. Heck of a year for you. Some big time wins, hard work paid off. I know how much time and effort you put into it. Fantastic year, and then Ryan, I know you had a heck of a year as well. So the Canadian presence. I mean, you guys are just everywhere in fantasy baseball and making some big moves.
Yeah, Ryan. How you doing? You've got to be feeling great. We're obviously going to talk about your overall championship win, but let everybody know where they can reach you on social media if you want to put out your social media. I don't know if you have anything to plug, but if you want to plug anything, now's the time.
All right. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you having me on. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at guy_rye22. I'm on there kind of doing a Yancey Eaton type thing where I just kind of comment and hang out with people online, but don't really contribute much else. Just a bunch of funny GIFs and stuff if I can fit them in there, but otherwise just cruising around the circuit, trying to see what everyone's up to, trying to see what content everyone's putting out there. So definitely following along all you guys in your journeys, and I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. It's great to have you guys on. You follow me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. You can follow Friends of Fantasy Benefits at Fantasy Benefits. I'm sure we will talk about my year in a future episode. So we'll talk about my BARF team here probably in a little while. So we won't.
We'll get to that.
I won't brag about my year because you guys will hear it in a future episode. I'll let Dave take over for a minute.
Yeah, one thing you can be assured of is Justin will brag at some point.
Absolutely. I'm taking victory laps. Yeah, I'm taking victory laps.
I know it's funny. You're the victory lapper, but
absolutely.
This is the only time you're allowed to take them. So
yeah.
I take them all year round. No problem.
Yep. Well, hey, listen, good for you. After last year, I couldn't be happier for you, Justin. I really couldn't. So at the same time, you will be insufferable. So All right. Getting into it. So we kind of talked about this before we hopped on, but everybody always saw when the Earth rankings came out, and by the way, shout out to Matt Cathy from I believe TARF, right? He's with you at TARF, Dustin, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He does an excellent job of putting out these this really cool graphic that has the top 10 overall players, and it has this really cool chart of all of the Earth leagues and how they're doing from week to week, and whether they're on an upswing or downswing. I can kind of see okay, which leagues are slacking. Well, maybe there's some leagues that are keep going down, and I'm like, all right, what's going on here? But he just every Monday puts that out. Such a good job. But Dustin, we always saw your name at the top of the overall standings, almost wire to wire. I don't know, outside of maybe the first week or two, and I don't even know maybe those two. I don't know if we saw any weeks that you weren't in first, other than there's one week where, as Ryan said, he was in first on a Monday, and that was the one week that Matt didn't do it, and he was like, son of a bitch. Now no one knows. But you guys were back and forth for a lot of the year, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it seemed like, I would kind of check. I'd usually check it at least once a day as I was kind of going through all my other stuff as well, and it felt like each day it was all right, he moved up 11 points and I kind of dropped back. And then I moved up 18 points and he kind of dropped back. And it's all right, it feels like whoever has a good pitching day is going to kind of, go back and forth. I had a pretty sizable lead for a while. And I don't underestimate wasn't the right word, but I didn't know how the point swings are going to work because of the amount of teams in the competition. It's just a fewer amount of teams compared to your online championship and your DCs and your main events and the things like that. So I was I don't know how to judge what these point swings are going to be like. And then I felt like the last entire month, at least, it was back and forth until the end. I knew it was going to come down to pitching. And I did not have a good pitching week. And I wasn't able to kind of regain some ground there. And I'm looking at the season stats, and offensively we were pretty similar. So it really just kind of came down to the pitching side of things, and that's where I was bested in the final week. But yeah, it's it just depended on the day. It was one day he'd be in front, next day I'd be in front, and that's kind of how it went for the last month.
Yeah, it was. It really was just back and forth, and like you said, really dependent on pitching. And unfortunately, the end of the season is so hard to predict. Playing time, the rotations. Who in the final week, who's going to get a 2-start? Is anybody going to get a 2-start? Do you want those 2 starts? It's
right.
It's man, it kind of sucks sometimes that it comes down to that final week, and it's really just a guessing game, honestly, in that final week. But that's how it goes, and you're just trying to build up enough of a lead in the first half of the year to make sure that you can afford that. So Ryan, talk to us about what went right for you this year in Earth, and your draft process. So for those of you who don't know, as Dustin kind of mentioned earlier, he was on our pod talking about his Earth draft with us. So here's the guy who had one of the best drafts in all of Earth, and we had him on and we talked about his process. Ryan, tell us a little bit about how your draft went and what went right for you this year.
Yeah, sure. It was it's pretty funny because I haven't actually gone back and looked at that draft until today, sort of in preparation of coming on here. I thought I should go back and take a look, but don't think it actually went that great. I think that there was obviously some standouts. I was a big Freddie Freeman guy this year. I pretty much had him as my 6. So anytime I was in the middle, I was getting him at 8. I was getting him at 10. And this one, I got him at 14.
Wow.
So that felt like a pretty big gift. I was able to get Tatis on the way back. So I felt like I had my average. I had my speed. I was kind of good to go and willing to wait out that time missed at the beginning of the year. But things came together pretty nicely. I think overall, if I had to say what fell my way this year, it was definitely injury luck early in the season. I think just being able to kind of pluck away throughout the weeks in the early part of the season and get yourself up there. Then after that, you just kind of make whatever moves you have to. I'd say all my injuries kind of happened in the second half for the most part, but at that point in time, nice. I think I'd build up a good lead. I had some good confidence with the team. I feel like had a good feel for what categories I was strong in and what I needed help in. So I was able to attack Fab a little bit better I feel like when those injuries happen early, you're just kind of, who's the best player available? I'm going to overspend to get them. Where when it happens a little bit later, you can pick and choose and fill your soft spots. So when it comes to draft prep itself, I'm actually somebody who I have this conversation with people all the time who I chat with in the industry, but I'm not a heavy projections guy. I'm not really a draft software guy. I kind of feel like I'm old school, like Matty Modica, just sit down and just know how you want to build your roster and look more from just a roster manipulation and build kind of strategy. So I'll obviously look and I'll take a peek at projections, but I don't necessarily lean towards one stronger than another. I'm not running SGPs. It's sit down in the draft room, see what the draft room gives me, and just kind of take what I can get. I know that seems really simplistic, but it seems to work pretty well for me. This is my third year in the NFBC. I've had great winning seasons in all three. And, I'm just going to kind of keep rolling. Obviously, you learn every year. I think this year was my best fab year yet. And that was really a good strength for mine as well. I don't usually have too much confidence in that process, but I felt like I didn't really want to spend too early this year. I'm not somebody who goes and drops $300-400 on guys. So I tend to be a little bit tighter, and pretty much down the stretch, that made it easy for me to get pretty much anybody I wanted. So that when I did have those injuries come up, I was able to, fill with a Bobby Miller or Royce Lewis and those types of people who came up, which were obviously massive contributions down the stretch.
Yeah, definitely. To win at this level, especially in overall, it's not obviously not just the draft. You have to be exceptional in fab as well. And Dustin, would you feel similarly that your fab was a big part of your success this year as well?
Yeah, and I think that's one of my main takeaways in general through this fantasy season is I don't want to ever get to the final month and not have money like for fab. It's just there's just more players available. I think that the way prospects are treated now, the way player development is now, the way teams are being more aggressive with promoting prospects, I think that there's not going to be one Fabapalooza anymore. I think there's going to be several weeks where there's going to be good players continuing to emerge. And that might not be the big guys, like Michael Garcia helped me. Like I knew I was weak in steals and I had the money to go get Michael Garcia. I think I nailed Chas McCormick right before his run where he got hot. Tommy Pham, when it looked like he was going to take over every day at ABs. I mean, I jumped on that. I mean, those guys probably combined for, 20 homers and 20 steals right there and probably 300 at bats down the stretch, which was huge because I knew I was kind of a little bit low in stolen bases because I lost Wander Franco with his whole disgusting situation. But fab was a big part for me. And I really like two things about this league. The later fab time was like, I had so much clarity. Like I'd already done my OCs, I'd done my main, and I was like, yeah, okay, I know kind of how the market's thinking about guys. I know who I like. I know what I'm going to target and that sort of thing. It was just nicer to really focus on one team for fab and doing it that way, which really helped matters. But didn't really nail the fab pitching as well as I would have liked. But the hitting, I did pretty well. And my draft went well, but I mean, the fab was just crucial. I wouldn't have been anywhere close in the overall had I not really nailed guys like Pham and McCormick and those types of players.
Okay. I hear you named McCormick, and obviously you're from that area. Did you kind of have a feeling about him this year that he would get more playing time?
Not really a feeling heading into the year, but the weird thing for me is I live in Austin and Astros games are blacked out for me.
Okay.
So like it's kind of that team's kind of in a blind spot a lot because I'm a big, like I watch a lot of games. I feel like that's one of my advantages is watching and analyzing and picking up on things. But I noticed, he had some swing changes and some things going on. And I was like, you can't really trust Dusty Baker, but like, man, every time this guy plays, he hits a homer and steals a bag. And I was like, I just got to bet on a guy like this. And I just got fortunate. I just literally nailed it at the right time. I was looking back at my stats for the guys I had active and
By the way, did you notice that once people started bitching at Dusty about not playing McCormick, then he started playing him every day?
Played him all the time. Yeah, I was like weird. He had like this Jake Myers thing going on for a little while,
Yep.
And then that kind of fell off. But yeah, I had McCormick for 184 ABs, and in that over that stretch, 28 runs, 11 homers, 36 RBI, 10 steals, 272. So that was him and Pham. Like those two really took off at the right time for me. But yeah, I just kind of noticed that some things were going on differently with his offensive profile, and he's a good athlete, power, speed guy. Like I'm just gonna take a chance here. He's gonna he can run with this thing, it certainly worked out well.
He looks like an accountant in his old NFBC photos.
Yeah, right.
It's actually funny. When you bring up Chaz, he was one of the guys I noticed last year in the playoffs. Every time I turn on the Houston game, I thought it was Altuve that was up, and I was like, "Whoa, this is like a bigger version of Altuve," because he had changed his stance right before the playoffs, and he was smacking a ton out of the ball there too. So he was somebody who was on my target list in DCs and stuff this year, but like him as a player as well.
Yeah, I mean those kind of guys that you pick up in mid-year, and you mentioned Tommy Pham. He was a guy who I picked up everywhere too. You just get those guys who can give you all the categories, the 5 category contributors. Like you can never have now this year with the new rules, we saw more of those types of guys than ever, but that just means you need to find more of those guys than before because everybody has access to more of those guys, so it's going to be really interesting to see in drafts next year. Quick question. You brought up the Fabapalooza. Were you expecting that there would be a lot of guys coming up this year? Because you're right, in the past, it's kind of been like those early guys that come up, people spend big on them thinking, there's not going to be another, big name possibly for another month or two. And you were right. Like it was just like week after week we saw, especially with the pitching, Logan Allen comes up, all those prospects, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu,
Yuri.
Yeah, Yuri. It was just nonstop. So were you guys prepared for that? Like, were you thinking this is how it's like, did you come into the year thinking I can save my money and get some guys who are going to be just as good, but cheaper later? Dustin, we'll start with you just because you talked about that before.
Yeah. I did not to this extent, but I did think that there would be just the way teams have been treating their prospects and, with the added incentive of the advantage you can get with a draft pick if you get a rookie of the year. I thought there'd be more. Unfortunately, I didn't act like that in my other fab leagues. Like, hey, ding dong, you thought more guys were gonna come up, and here you are with no money. But yeah, that's just kind of the way baseball's been trending. And look at this recent draft class. Like, I live in Austin, Round Rock Expressor, 15 minutes from my house. Wyatt Langford ended the year in AAA. Like Jackson Holliday's already in AAA. Like Dylan Cruz was already in AA. Like I think teams are realizing now, especially with these college guys, that they can really accelerate these guys. Like Zach Neto, like him coming up, and he was, he battled some injuries, but pre-injury, he was a guy that was on my TARF team for a little while. Like a little bit of pop, some speed, good lineup position. So. I did heading into the year, I was like, I think there's going to be more of this coming up, but I certainly didn't think there'd be this many. And in my other leagues, I went big on Bryce Miller, like pretty much everywhere. And it didn't really work out in hindsight, but I think that's just the way. Yeah, he was okay. Not below 30% of your budget good, but he was okay. But that's just seems like where the game is going right now. Is teams are okay with bumping these guys super quick.
So you don't think that that we brought everybody up this year and that there's less people to bring up? You think it's just going to keep going like this next year?
Well, I think it's going to keep going. I think there are going to be less pitching prospects next year. Just because it's a pretty depleted. You look at the industry prospect list now, and there's not many guys there anymore. Right. Although I will say, the public is always later to these guys than the actual organizations are. How big of a deal was Tanner Bybee, until Passan tweeted about him like late spring training.
I knew about him because I'm a Cleveland guy.
The diehards knew about him, but
I don't know. Yeah, so like when people asked me like for draft and holds, they said, "Who do you draft everywhere?" I said Tanner Bybee. He's their ace. He's the guy who's most ready to come up. Don't bother with some of the other guys. I'm like he's the guy that's going to come up and make an impact this year. He's the most polished. But I don't know other systems like I know Cleveland's. I only Cleveland's system is the only system I have that kind of confidence.
Like,
in.
did anybody
So,
know Bryce Miller and Brian Wu? Like,
Yeah,
I never heard of
No,
them.
I think that the way player development is now, I think you're going to see more of these guys just kind of emerge, and it's like, whoa, like, why wasn't this guy on a top 100 prospect list? It's like these especially with pitchers, can make subtle changes, and all of a sudden, if you're in the right development organization, they can just start rolling guys up that are good players.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just in terms of like my draft strategy, my portfolio is mostly draft and holds, but I think I almost take an opposite approach of a lot of others that I speak to about their sort of strategies in terms of I like safety as much as I can.
Yeah.
I'm not the type that goes out there and picks rookies and tries to look down farm systems. I'm taking the guys that are there that are boring, the Kyle Gibsons, the guys that I know they're going to go 180 innings and get me stats that I can plug in on good matchups. I'll take a spec here or there. And, if I'm in a draft, like you guys mentioned, Brian Wu, like he's someone that I saw like Waxman, for instance, take in a draft. And I was just like, ooh, okay, like, let's take a look into this guy. And, if there's players that I know that player development and the systems of some of those players in the minors, then it might pique my interest a little bit. But for the most part, I'm a very safe, give me a guy I know who's going to get this many innings and I know he has a job, and not so much thinking about that mid-season or late season push and what those guys are going to bring. So that's something I'm trying to change in my game a little bit, because I think the way that things are morphing in the MLB and how quickly these guys are getting pushed through the system, I think we're going to have to adapt for sure. So that's definitely a weak spot in terms of my strategy, and something I'll have to continue to work on. And that's probably the biggest thing I'll be working on in the off season this year.
So understandable not drafting some of these guys, but when they get called up, are you putting bids in on them? Like, did you get any of those guys? Did you get a Bryce Miller or a Wu or a Bobby Miller or Tanner Bybee?
Yeah, I ended up with Bobby. He was a guy that I would sort of had my eyes on as the season was progressing, but I didn't really love some of the earlier guys. I seem to be coming in second in almost every single fab bid on all of the big pitchers. But I stayed pretty true to what I felt the evaluations were for them. So I wasn't necessarily somebody who was going to go out and spend $300, $400 on guys, but if I put them down for 170 and they went for 300, great. If I got them at 170, sure, I'm happy. Just try to stay true to my numbers that I felt was what I could spend on them and still be able to do what I wanted to do later in the season. So it turned out in my league for Surf anyways, that every week when one of those pitchers came up, somebody was spending $300. And by the time Bobby came around, I had the hammer. So I didn't have to go full hammer for him, but it was definitely somebody that I knew sort of once he was up, I was like, okay, this is my guy. I'm not going to let him go. I'm going to trust in the Dodgers system here and just hope they give him the amount of innings. Despite the fact that I sat him this last week, because I thought he'd only go three or four innings in Colorado and then they bench him. So I was definitely surprised when he went 7 with 9 Ks or whatever it was on Monday or Tuesday, and thinking, oh God, what did I just do? I'm gonna lose this overall, but was still able to pull it out with some of my boys like Bailey Ober with a strong 2-step.
Justin, any thoughts on the prospects coming up and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think teams are just more incentivized to bring guys up quicker with the new rules around like voting, getting votes for Rookie of the Year. But 2, like, especially with the young pitchers, I mean, there were so many injuries this year, right? Like the new rules, speeding up the game, clearly led to more pitching injuries. And I think, teams like, maybe the Mariners, they didn't have a choice in the matter. Like they had to bring up arms if they wanted to be competitive. Like at some point you just run out of bodies.
Yeah, I don't think Brian Wu was in their early season plans, but I think it just happened.
I think if it had been up to them, they never would have gone to Brian Wu. But I like Wu a lot. So and I like Bryce Miller a lot. I don't think that for the most part, guys are worth $300. And this is coming from someone who spent $300 on Yuri Perez. Yuri Perez was great most of the year until he kind of got tired at the end. It just hamstrings you so much.
Yeah. But he even got sent down too, like he wasn't even up for the whole time. So there's a lot of risk with that. I kind of, I was more going towards where Ryan ended up, with just kind of waiting back and not overbidding on some of the early guys. Just say, hey, if I happen to get him, cool. If I can get him for cheap, but if not, wait till later when you have more information, and then you've got the hammer, and you can get your guy.
Yeah,
I think you get a little bit more role clarity too, right? And you see a guy that's got a big injury, he's out for the season. This guy's getting the call, so he's got a safe rotation spot versus maybe just a spot start because they're, they've been running through guys. Somebody needs a break, but I think you get a little bit more clarity in the role as you get further into the season.
And a bigger sample size too, right? Like some of these guys who came up real early, we saw like 30 innings of them in the minors, and it's like, how much do we really know about them at that point?
I think the role thing that Ryan just mentioned, I think, is really important. I mean, how many people spent $300 on Taj Bradley?
Yeah.
And then he was up for like 2 starts and got sent right back down.
Yeah.
And they weren't necessarily even great. So like, I think the move that a lot of people are kind of pivoting towards right now, especially in the NFBC world, is being really aggressive early. And I understand why. If you do hit, you get the guy for a longer period of time than if you wait. But it's also just a really bad allocation of resources, in my opinion. I think you really put yourself in a position that, like, you could burn $300, and then that leaves you 30% behind the field.
Yeah,
rest the way, which is not where you want to be.
Yeah, and it's a math game too. Like you get to the end of the year, you have a feel for what you need. If you've blown 30% of your budget on a starter who just ends up being an above average guy, and it's like, whoa, I could have used that money to kind of hammer away at steals or saves or whatever it is. And that's kind of what happened to me in a couple of OCs. And one of them, somebody dropped George Springer like early in the year. And I was like, whatever it takes, I'm getting George Springer.
Yeah.
And I did. And he was solid. But I got to the end of the year. It's like, man, I could have used that money when Wander Franco got, put on whatever banishment list. And all of a sudden I needed steals and I was a little light in ratios. And it's like, it really does. And like you said, Justin, I get the idea of, hey, if you nail one of those guys super early on, man, it's great. You give them the whole year. But I feel like with pitchers, that's especially tough because these guys are going to have maybe workload restrictions. They might get tired. They, might just get knocked around a little bit. They might get sent back down. With the hitters, I think it's a little different, although I'm sure the people that spend a bunch of money on Matt Mervis probably wouldn't agree with that. But like if there's like a surefire hitting prospect, like when Jackson Holiday debuts, like that's when you can feel like, man, like if I've got 75% of the season left, like going big after a Jackson Holiday is probably worth the risk. But yeah, that's something I'm going to take away with pitchers, especially. Like I just don't foresee myself ever spending that kind of money again because it really puts you behind the 8 ball down the stretch. You just can't. You just can't plug your holes and attack those stats in those areas where you can make a move.
Absolutely, I think I'm definitely trying to employ that next year. It's especially depends too on how disciplined you are with your fab budget spending. That is my weak point personally. So I think spending big early makes less sense than kind of budgeting like that and not going big on guys early. Like you said, especially the pitchers, because a lot more volatility there for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the leagues of Earth this year. So, Glarf came on top yet again. Really proud of my boys and girls.
No help from you.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, yeah. Listen.
Mr. Wake Link over here.
I had to bring this out to make me remember that I at one point didn't suck at fantasy baseball. So
whatever helps you sleep at night, right?
Yeah, it does help me a little bit, Ryan. It does help me when I see Surf in the middle of the rankings and Glarf at the top. It does help me sleep a little bit better at night. Yeah.
I tried my best.
I know. You're gonna have to try a little harder. You're gonna have to get some more Ryan Irelands in that league. I love the competition that we have between the leagues and everything. Like that's my favorite part is playing not only against the people in your league but with them too. I think that kind of differentiates Earth from other leagues, and it's what I love the most about it is even when I don't personally win, I still win because my league won, and I love that. And I really feel that too. Like, I know it sounds cheesy, but even though I sucked, I still feel like because I stayed active and everything, I didn't give up or anything. I helped my team a little bit by sucking less than someone who's not sitting in the lineup at least. Yeah, I'm curious. Are you guys like? Do you guys have that drive to win? Like, does Surf and Tarf, do you guys really want to win Earth? Is there like here's what we're going to do to beat Glarf next year? I'm just curious if there's any talk about that kind of thing in your leagues. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I can maybe start with this one. I think I definitely, like, as much as winning the overall feels good, I was pushing for Surf to at least finish top 3 this year. We were kind of middle of the pack last year, and for a good portion and around like July into August, we had made a push, got up right almost into second place. I think we were like 6 points behind second as a group. Even down to the last week, I'm the commissioner of the Canadian League, so I was sending out messages in our group chat telling guys, like, it's the last week, go out, set fab bids, even if you get the guys that I want,
Yeah,
cut my knees out from underneath me while I'm trying to go for the overall. Like, I still want you guys to go out. I want everyone making bids. I want to see some action. So I was trying to be as forthright as I could in the group to just keep reminding people, we still got to go. We still got to push. Unfortunately, we just kept kind of sliding in the last month of September there. And I'm waiting for the latest update, but it sounds like we're kind of right down in the middle bottom area. But, we haven't necessarily discussed strategy. But, I feel like we got a good group. I feel like guys are constantly in the chat. They're in the mix. Maybe the things just didn't fall right for us this year, but I like our group. I think we can come back stronger next year.
Good. All right. And, Dustin, Tarf has been up there both the last 2 years. So, like, you guys, I think you finished second last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
I believe this year you guys were third. Actually, Darf came out of the woodwork this year and really had an impressive year, led by my boy Little Cheesecake, Art Tornabene. Had a great year. I did not see that coming, honestly. Like, it's not like, I mean, and that's just, I don't know a lot of people in that league, but they had an incredible year. I think they had 1 or 2 people who were in the top 10 as well. Yeah, Dustin, tell me a little bit about Tarf and how things went this year.
Yeah, we had a unique situation where at one point we realized we had somebody who wasn't making any roster changes. And I can't remember why specifically. For some reason, I want to say it was somebody that ended up getting hired by a pro team. And if you get hired by a pro team, you cannot do fantasy baseball. You just can't.
Yeah. Oh, really?
You can't. So I think that just kind of it got to like, I don't know, like June, and like, hey, wait a minute, we're not seeing a lot of roster changes in this group. But it's a good group. It's a good mix. You've definitely got some diehard players that you guys are familiar with, and also some guys that are a little bit newer to the scene, but are really passionate about the sport. And I gotta give some love to my guy Mitch, because when we were talking about our drafts way back at the beginning of the year, his Matt Olson pick got hammered pretty hard on the podcast, and he was like, make sure you let those guys know Matt Olson. I was like, man, I would have loved to have Matt Olson on a lot of teams.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I faded him everywhere, and he made me look like an idiot. So shout out to Mitch for that Matt Olson pick. But no, it's a good group. We have a like a Twitter DM thread that everybody kind of bounces. It's not like daily active, but like, every week or so people kind of pop in, and some incentive to keep going after it and keep competing and that sort of thing. So there is that pride element as well. And I think it's growing. This is only my second year in TARF. So I think as we get more familiar with each other, the guys do a great job of having like an in-person draft and that sort of thing, kind of building that camaraderie and stuff like that. So
that's what it's all about, man. That community, getting together and meeting people in person. I love that aspect of it. So you were talking about TARF. Russell Withers is your commissioner, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So actually, Ryan, something you said earlier kind of reminds me of something that Russell said last year. He said, I did really well. I think he won Tarf last year. He won the buckle, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And he said, I drafted a boring team, and next year my goal is to be even more boring. It's like, you want production, and the young flashy guys, sometimes they work out, a lot of times they don't, and I think he's kind of realized that his strength is just taking the boring productive players that other people overlook. And you also, Ryan, you were mentioning, you take what the draft gives you, and I think a lot of it is just that, taking whatever production falls to you, you're going to take it and run with it.
Yeah, I think that I'm not necessarily a crazy volume drafter like some of the NFBC people we know, but I'm in about 20 leagues there, and I think it kind of goes through swings where, for the first month or so of drafting, there's certain pockets that you like, but then ADP kind of evolves and changes as people start jumping in the draft room. So you need to kind of mix it up a little bit, and then the next month you might sort of target other pockets. And by the time you get to March, it's kind of like, okay, I'm looking back at my player shares, and this is who I have, and this is maybe who I really want to target because these are my bigger leagues. But you also run into some issues sometimes where you're like, I already have too much of this guy, so I need to go elsewhere. So I think it's just having a bit of a feel for that. But overall, yeah, for me, boring is beautiful. I want guys with playing time. You want to be able to get those ABs. I got Andrew McCutcheons and stuff everywhere up and down the lineup just because he's going to get in there and I know I can play him. And I don't really take a whole lot of chances. I think that, so far it's worked, but there needs to be a balance. So my chances will be a little bit more on some injury risk players probably later in the draft, not so much early. But I tend to go more injury risk, guys returning from injury more so than rookies. And that's just a feel for me. I'm a physiotherapist by day job. So I feel like I at least have a little bit of an understanding of what guys' injuries mean and what it means for recovery. So, I have more of a comfort in that zone. But overall, yeah, I'm more of a, let's just see what happens here. Oh, I haven't drafted this guy and now he's fallen 2 rounds. Do I like him enough to say I'll take him, or am I going to stick by my guns and say, nope, doesn't matter how far he falls, I'm not touching him? So I feel like this year I was a lot better at that. I did get caught in a couple Dylan Cease situations where it was the fifth or sixth round. And I'm telling myself, God, those strikeouts look pretty good right now. And I took the shot, but I think we all got caught by a couple of those. But overall, I think some things to improve upon, but boring is beautiful.
Yep, absolutely. And Dustin, also forgot to mention, looking at Matt's breakdown, and I DM'd you guys it in the Twitter chat. Sorry, I meant to do that before, but you know how he has those graphs. There's one point where Glarf and Tarf almost met in early June, where Glarf was on a downswing and Tarf was on an upswing, and that was like the only time that we were close to getting past. We were really close at that time. I don't know if you guys saw that at the time though.
Oh yeah, we saw it.
Okay.
Yeah, there was some discussion about the strong start. So yeah, we were definitely. I mean, it helps when the guy publishing the graph is in your league. So yeah, we were pushing, and then I think it was around that time we also realized we need to replace an owner. So it might have kind of helped contribute to the nosedive from that point.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I had 2 guys who were inactive at one point in Glarf too. It's despite the fact that is like one of the major tenets of Earth. I'm like, okay, no inactivity. Everybody tries. We're all going to show up for the draft. In a perfect world, that's how it goes. And I will never stop striving to make it that. But, we do have to be on alert. We do have to keep an eye out. Is someone inactive and all that stuff? If you have people in your league who are paying attention to that stuff, it helps a lot. Hopefully it's the commissioner, but, we get busy too. It's a lot to put on one person to keep track of everybody else in your league. But, you want your league to win, and you really don't have a great shot at that if your team is inactive. And I know, Justin, you dealt with a lot of that last year. And
this year.
Oh, really?
I think the reason Barf doesn't finish at least second, if not even first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you excuse you? Are you saying Barf can hang with Glarf?
We're gonna replace a couple people next year. I think that's
bringing in the ringers.
Oh boy, let's go.
We're gonna bring back some people. Eno Saris had to drop out because of a conflict, and Dalton Del Don had to drop out because of a conflict. So we're going to probably replace 2 people who were pretty inactive. Like we had one guy who pretty much, I don't even know if he spent $1 in Fab, to be quite honest.
Oh my God.
So, and I probably should have replaced him earlier on in the year, but I'm of the opinion, and it's a different opinion than Dave and other people, which is you pay your money, it's your team. You want to run it in the ground? I wish you wouldn't. But it's your money. If you want to light it on fire, feel free. I hope those type of people are in like my main event league and stuff like that. So
I think I'm gonna have to bribe some Texans, like if we have that situation again next year, like to get some heavy hitters in the league.
I mean, hey, listen,
Ryan, you can't do that. You've got too many good Canadian players.
Yeah.
All right,
don't be reaching out to Phil just so.
Yeah, don't be.
Phil won't play. I've already talked to Phil. I talked to Phil years ago about that.
Yeah, Phil's no more Fab League, stop bothering me type, I think. But
yeah.
Reach out to Rob Silver, Fred Zinke, those guys, some great Canadian players. We haven't got them on board yet, but I think if this thing keeps building some steam, we might be able to get them.
So Ryan, I got to know. I haven't seen your team. I need to know what were the standouts that beat me? Like I need to. It's bugging me. I need to know why I lost.
And we need to make sure that it's all the leagues are publicly viewable next year. We'll talk to Derek and
we can do that. I don't know if that's possible because I feel like we might have talked to him about this already, but I will definitely look into that.
I'm pretty sure it is because I believe TGFBI is publicly viewable.
I don't remember. I thought there was a reason why we couldn't though. I don't remember. I'll have to talk to Derek.
Okay.
Anyways, Ryan, continue.
Yeah, no, I can give you a quick run through of who I at least finished the season with, but I'll tell you, I had Sean Murphy all year, and boy, did I love him in the first half. And then it got to a point where I had Yainer Diaz as my C2, and I saw Jordan coming back, and I didn't see the playing time. Brantley was maybe going to make his way back, so I decided I'm going to jump on the Luis Campusano train here. He's just about to come back. I'm going to dump Yainer. And some people might say, oh, well, that's not too bad because Campusano was pretty good down the stretch. Yeah, well, I had him for 2 weeks, and he was getting outplayed by Gary Sanchez, so I dropped him and moved on to Ryan Jeffers. All along, I probably should have dropped Sean Murphy for any of those, and it would have been this game, set, and match. But so I ended up with Murphy and Jeffers on my squad, Freddie Freeman, Gleyber Torres, Bryson Stott, Jorge Polanco, Cody Bellinger, Ian Happ, Spencer Steer, Fernando, Willie Castro, who was just an excellent source of steals down the stretch.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
My boy Josh Naylor, who was a big target of mine all year. Love him. Justin Turner on all my teams. Love him. And Jack Sawinski at the util. Things got a little bit hairy with pitching down the stretch. My rocks early in the year were Gallen and Wheeler. I ended up getting some guys like Eduardo Rodriguez when he came back from injury. I was the guy in on sale. I had Ober for the whole year, picked him back up when he came back. I got Bobby Miller. I lost Eovaldi. I lost Darvish. I lost Jeffrey Springs. But overall, I feel like I had a really nice balance. Saves was my weak spot that I was kind of working on. I was on Finnegan. I was back and forth with the Washington guys early in the year. I did have Hader giving me some good stability and went to Tanner Scott down the stretch. So I feel like I didn't have too many big holes that needed to be plugged, but definitely relied on an Adrian Hauser two-step in the last week, and some of those guys that helped push across the finish line. Well, there you go. So he didn't help me much then, I guess. But yeah, it was a good squad. But yeah, it was really interesting not knowing who you're going up against. Like every week, come down the stretch, I'm just thinking, I don't know. I have no idea what this guy's doing. Like, what pitchers does he have? And then the guy who finished in third, Swerka, I forget what league he was in, but every night he just seemed to gain 15, 20 points, and his pitching stats were through the roof. And I was like, does this guy just have 9 aces on his team? Because every night he was just crawling up the leaderboard. And I actually thought, we're sitting ducks. This guy's just going to come up and pass us. But
that's Ian Swerka of Scarf, the Southern California League led by George Montanez.
Scarf, there you go. So yeah, I almost felt like reaching out to him, being like, dude, just take a chill pill. Every weekend, like, you just see you cut objects look closer than they appear in mirror. He was just coming up over our shoulder there, but luckily we were able to stave him off.
Yeah, we didn't have too much crossover. in terms of the roster. So
as different teams.
Yeah, the last week, we talked about early on with the 2 steps. I think this kind of was like the last couple of weeks, and I got burned by a couple of guys that just did not have a second 2-step, and their first one was not good.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you're chasing strikeouts, like you kind of just need the volume at that point.
So much of it is just luck down the stretch with that kind of stuff too. I mean, as much as we'd all love to say that we're all knowing and brilliant, a lot of it just comes down to
the last week. There's so much of that. I mean, Kevin Gausman came down to, if Seattle had won, they would have needed Gausman on the last day, and that would have been a 2-step instead of a 1-step. So there's just shit like that. You're just doing probabilities. You're saying, okay, there's a chance he gets a second 2 start. Does that make him better than this guy who I know is going to have a 2 start? You just, it's a gamble.
As a Jays fan, let me just say I'm very happy that Gausman did not have to start on.
Yeah. I mean, obviously they didn't want to have to use him either, but they just could not win a game down the stretch when they needed to.
Yeah, we backed into the playoffs with a moonwalk, so we're lucky to hold off and be able to get him game 1.
Blue Jays are my preseason prediction to win the World Series. Not my prediction now, but my preseason prediction.
Yeah, I was going to say with Alek Manoah pitching game 1 of the World Series.
Yeah, I was really excited about Manoah, and that's why my bar team struggled.
I am very happy I had none of him. Well, Justin, before you went off talking about how your some of Barf was inactive, I was going to say Barf had a really nice rebound because Barf was definitely like their namesake last year. You guys were the Slarf of 2022. So I was impressed with your rebound this year. You guys came up. You were in second at some point. So I'm excited to see what you guys can come up with next year when you replace some guys. I want all leagues to have no inactive players. I'm not looking to win every year because we're just the most active league. I want this to be competitive. I want there to be rivalries. I want people to be challenging us. I don't want to be ahead the entire year, as fun as that is. It's like I want to see other leagues doing well. So I really hope that we can continue to kind of go in that direction. And I plan to meet with all of the commissioners, and kind of talk about that a little bit and who's inactive, what are we going to do about it. I know, Justin, if you want to not boot people who are inactive because they pay it, I get it, but it's hurting your whole league. That's my problem with it.
And that is the hard part.
It's not just their team. You're hurting all of the teams in the league. That's the problem.
Yeah. And I mean, I just, to me, it's supposed to be a fun league where we all get together, and, Barf's been around, for a really long time at this point. I think this was our 6th or 7th season. So, I think next year, hopefully we'll finally dethrone you guys, or at least we will do our best to dethrone Glarf, because no one wants to see Glarf win. I mean, let's be honest.
I know
agree on that.
other people who definitely want to see Glarf win again. So
no, only Glarf wants to see Glarf win.
Well, and only Barf wants to see Glarf win.
The little people want to see a new league be crowned.
Right.
People love dynasties, the Lakers, the Celtics, those are
no one likes dynasties.
Yeah, you lost me on Lakers and Celtics.
There'll be a movie one day about Glarf.
I don't know any hockey teams, Ryan. I don't know what the dynasty version of an NHL team is.
The Red Wings or the Avalanche.
Red Wings.
The Oilers.
Oilers,
back in the day.
I don't know what those are. That's hockey. I know nothing. I hate hockey.
Best sport to watch live, by far.
It's what?
Really?
Hockey
I think on television, I think it's the best playoff sport to watch on TV.
It is. You do not realize. I mean, if you've never been to a professional hockey game, you do not realize how fast everything is. It is.
I'm sure it is. I have no interest in trying to keep track of a little black puck.
It's amazing.
No.
Well, we'll get you one of those fluorescent streamers they used to put on.
The old red.
That's fine.
As we would say up here north of the border, for the Americans, they had to put that on. So.
Yeah, that's fair. That's probably what it was for, exactly.
I'll take that. And so then I noticed a couple of things happened late in the year. We talked about kind of some of the good leagues in Earth, but man, Werf was doing well for a while. They were talking some trash at us. They were coming for us, and then boy, they hit September and they really tailed off. Maybe some inactivity there as they realized that they were not going to be competing anymore. But the big question is, what in the fuck happened with Salarf? I mean, just look at you just look at that on that
football fans.
Football fans?
Yeah, I mean Salarf, for those who don't know, is the St. Louis area, right? So
yes.
They played like the Cardinals is what happened. So they've been a good league in the past. Hopefully they'll be able to rebound.
I'm definitely have to talk to Nate Markham about that because I don't know what happened there, but that
probably drafted too many Cardinals pitchers was probably the problem.
Yeah, that probably is the issue. They all drafted Cardinals.
Waino, Mikolas, yeah, probably too many Cardinals. Helsley,
Steven Matz in the 5th round or something, probably.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's something Phil would do, so maybe. He just wants Matz to be a thing so badly.
I'm also a Matz guy, so I can't say anything.
I get it. He has those spurts, but he's not somebody you can rely on. But you don't have to draft him, or you have to rely on him anyway. So
he'll be cheap next year for me to buy right back in.
He'll be on all my teams next year,
ready to get hurt again.
Yep,
exactly.
So I just want to give a quick shout out to some other guys in the top 10. We know about, Ryan finishing first and Dustin second. You already mentioned Ian Swerka from Scarf. He finished in third. Maddie Davis from Glarf finished in fourth.
Stealing our player, Maddie.
Davis.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed he wasn't a factor when he was in Barf last year, but he came here. We coached him up a little bit. Now he came through with a big year.
There you go.
He won Barf a couple years ago. So he is the first person to win 2 different Earth.
Oh, don't worry. He's texted me on multiple occasions. So I'm familiar with that.
We need like a Galaxy Hall of Fame or something like that. Like
What are you gonna punish people for not moving to be in different Earth leagues?
Ryan's gonna have to move down to St. Louis in order to try to claim the title. Move every year so that way you can.
Well, that'll make it easier to win the overall. If you're in the shittiest league, you have a much clearer path to winning the overall. So Ryan Venancio won the overall last year, and he was like, "Yeah, thank you, but honestly, I don't feel great about it because like my entire league was pretty much inactive at the end. I could pick up everybody I wanted for like $1 or $2, and like it's really kind of bullshit that I won the overall." And I was like, I mean, I get you, but that's what I don't want. I don't want to have a league where someone can just take
that happens in other overall contests too. So
sure.
That's part of the game, unfortunately.
I know, but I'm still going to try my best to eliminate as much of that as possible.
Absolutely.
I don't want that. Our boy Ryan Bloomfield, 5th overall. Great year from Ryan out of Werf. And then another Werf guy, Grant Klein, a member of the All Caps Club. So if for those of you who don't know, like all of like the kind of newer players and, like when veterans are targeting leagues to enter, they look for players with all caps in their names because it's usually some of the weaker players. So there's a lot of talk about the all
Not
caps
Grant
people.
Klein, though.
No, not Grant Klein. And I think, wasn't there someone who won or came in second or something in the overall? Or I can't remember, but someone who couldn't change his all cap status, unfortunately. But Werf had 2 in the top 6. And then Toby Gevin and Jake Crumpler from Barf. Now, I've never seen the name Jake Crumpler before. He must have shot up there at the end.
He was battling. I mean, we had a pretty good battle in Barf throughout the year. I mean, Howard.
Who won it, by the way? Was it Toby?
Toby won, I think by like half a point.
Oh wow,
that's what it looks like. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm double checking right now. Oh no, he ended up winning by 2 points on increasing his lead on the last day. And so, but yeah, it was a really good battle. We had a lot of people. Richard Sands. He was in 3rd in our league. Doug Thorburn, who almost won the TGFBI overall, strong 4th place showing. And then, of course, me in 5th place, in spite of...
Wow, you got all the way up to 5th. Wow.
I you know what? Even on my teams where I'm not competing, I worked my butt off this year.
Oh, I know. And that's why I hoped that you would be able to rub off on the rest of your league and like.
I gained 9 points in the last week of Barf.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, you were not that high. Like, I mean, it's been a minute since we've done a pod. You were not doing that great before. Like, there was a time where we were close to each other. You dusted me by the end for sure.
The early part of the season was pretty brutal with injuries for me, and I did a lot of roster churning, especially towards the end. So
fair enough. And then Ryan, another one of your league members, Frank Amarante, known for his hot takes on Twitter, came in 9th place in the overall. And then my guy Greg Sharon out of Slarf ended up in 10th, and he is a good player too. Him and David Chauvin took home the tag team championship.
Nice, good for them.
Tony and I got 3rd, but they were kind of randomly together. Like they both wanted to join and didn't have a partner, so they just partnered up together. And honestly, it's pretty impressive that they were able to kind of cohesively build a team together like that. So
that's awesome.
Greg's a good player.
Yep. So's Dave.
What was that?
I said so's Dave.
Oh, Chauvin. Yeah. He is he in Earth?
I don't think he is. I don't know
the
where
guy who he famously went closer at the 1-2 turn.
Yeah,
I think.
Remember that?
Yeah,
that was not a good play.
That was not a great move. No,
didn't work out so well. Yeah, I wonder.
But
he's a follow up on that one.
I know he used to work for Roto World / NBC Sports. I don't know if he still does.
I don't know if he is either. But a very good player.
He's a great player.
He is.
All right, Dave, I think now is the time for you to just apologize to everybody for your performance.
I mean, I feel like I've kind of done that this whole time. I mean, from the intro to now, but it's this was by far my worst league in my history of playing fantasy baseball. I've never I kind of take pride in never finishing in the bottom half of the league, and not only did I finish in the bottom half of the league, I finished in 14 out of 15. I just never thought that would ever happen.
154th overall.
Yeah, it was bad, man.
So do you have to jump in Lake Superior when it's in the winter, or what's kind of the what's the
protocol? Yeah, maybe I do. Maybe I need to do something for a penance. That's a good call.
In Texas, whoever finishes last, you get branded. With.
Hey, I didn't finish last. As bad as I was, someone finished behind me, and I think
Julio Ramos right now is not real happy with the fact he's getting a brand pretty.
Yeah, breaking some news here. We just as champion of the league, I'm enacting a new now.
Dustin is going to forego his belt buckle in order to brand someone his property of Dustin L. McComas.
Changing things up.
In Canada, you just need to go stay in an igloo for a weekend or something like that.
I think I'd rather take the brand. Yeah.
Oh. You hate to see it, Julio. You hate to see it. Sorry, bud.
Sorry, Julio.
I do feel I feel like I don't even know. It was I never thought that would happen to me. So I guess it was a really humbling moment, and that's never going to happen again. So just going to have to win the overall next year now, just to get my pride back here. So so I'm curious from all three of you guys, just talking about Earth as a whole. What are we doing? What are we doing well? What are we doing right? What do you like about Earth? Ryan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it's doing what it's meant to do. It's supposed to make smaller communities part of a larger community. And I think that for the Canadian League last year, we weren't able to get together. We had some pretty tight COVID rules in this country and everything. And so we did more of a virtual draft, but this year we were able to get together, and I think we had 13 out of 15 guys, and just really nice being able to, bring similar minds together and be able to do something that obviously is a great pastime that we all enjoy. I think, there are things that you've brought up definitely. And even when I was taking over to start the Canadian League up here, you had mentioned, we need to try to get some females involved if we can, wherever we can. We need to try to increase the diversity of the leagues. We need to try to be as welcoming and as open as we can to get new faces and new bodies in here. And so I think that that's something we're going to continue to strive to do, and we're going to have to find ways to do that effectively. But overall, I think, it's still kind of early, and we're going to continue to expand by the sounds of it the best we can. And I know the players in the league all enjoy it. And obviously there's an element of giving back to charity. So anytime you're doing something where you're giving back, I think it's always going to be beneficial, and people are always going to rally around it. So I can't say that people join it for the biggest prize pool in the world, but I think everybody loves just getting together and being able to do the live draft and have something to bitch and complain about for an entire season, and try to run it back the following year. So can't thank you enough for getting me involved and for being able to push all these leagues and get things really snowballing as we move forward, and can't wait to do it again next year.
Appreciate that, Ryan. I knew you were hesitant to be a commissioner, but I'd talked to you for a while, and I was pretty convinced that you were going to be a good one, and I think you are. I think you made the right call, and appreciate all the kind words. Dustin, how about you?
Yeah, it's echoing a lot of that. I mean, whenever you have a charitable aspect to playing something like fantasy baseball, I think that's always a really, really cool deal when you can give back, to a charity and kind of rally around that cause. But yeah, it's just like creating a different type of community, not a different type of community, but just bringing more people into the game, into the hobby, into, friendships, and, just meeting new people. Like, I knew a couple people that were in TARF before I joined TARF, but just, exchanging ideas with players, and whole aspect of just kind of exposing more people to fantasy baseball and the pluses of fantasy baseball. This isn't a crazy buy-in entry point. It's a great way to get acclimated with the NFBC, with the community, which I feel like is just growing all the time, and meeting, new people that share the same passion about this crazy game that we play, and that sort of thing. But yeah, in having that, just like Ryan said, like being able to have that point where you do have those live drafts, and you are meeting new people, and you're, it's something to look forward to each year, is, the idea of like, okay, I can kind of put that on the calendar, and know that, hey, these guys are going to be in the league again. We can kind of talk about other fantasy baseball stuff, or Texas sports. I know there are guys, a lot of Texas sports fans and stuff like that. So we share a lot of the same interests and stuff. So it's a cool deal. And I know you guys put a lot of work into organizing it. And I think it's definitely on the right path. And I know I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And I know the people that are in TARF get enjoyment out of it as well.
Thank you. Yeah, could not agree more with everything you said there. I hope we can continue to grow that community, to keep bringing more people in. And
I agree, John.
John Wilder saying, personally, I think we cut out all the Canadians out of the NFBC leagues next year's.
at least like tax them 3 times on winnings. Like come on, this is getting ridiculous. I need like the flags. I need flags beside owner names. Like if I go into draft rooms, Canadian, I'm out.
Yeah, it's like when you see like the golfers with their flags next to your name, so like when you look for the U.S. flags, you know who to root for. You're like, okay, he's Canadian, I can't root for him to win.
Instead of the little trophy symbol next to people's names, it's going to be like a maple leaf.
Yes.
I'll give a shout out to John. He's part of my little text group that we have there, the Discord, called the Mean Girls, with some of the best minds in the business. So I'll leave it at that. But I've heard some people in there talking about the last couple of years about how they were going to move north of the border, considering everything that was going on down south. So no potty mouth about my Canada right now.
Oh, hey, I spent part of a honeymoon in Quebec, so I'm about as pro-Canadian as a Texan can be.
As he's legally able to.
I'm just tired of getting Dutch mail, though. It's just starting to really bother me.
Justin, what do you think?
I don't remember the question. What's good about?
God. It's like this is your pod, not your podcast or something. I said, what are we doing right?
You just tweeted 3 more victory laps. It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think it's the community of it, right? Like, the Barf draft for me is one of my favorite days of the year. Like, getting to sit down next to, a lot of people I haven't seen all year, right? Like that's the only time I get together with some of those guys. And it's just a ton of fun, right? The building that community, having, the people that, like, Howard Bender, like elbowing me in the ribs when I take a guy that he wants, or, hanging out with like Eno and Doug Thorburn and Sammy Reed and Toby and Bubba. And like, it just, for me, I love it. It's, when I came up with the idea for Barf, years ago, like I didn't think it was going to grow, as a league, much less as like into multiple leagues. And so seeing kind of like all these other leagues pop up, kind of emulating what Barf started, has been truly awesome to kind of witness and see. And obviously there are things that are going to be adjusted and changed and tweaked here and there, but I think the general aspect of just building a community around fantasy baseball, like I don't have a home league. Barf is my home league, right?
Yeah,
like,
ditto.
Same for me. Yeah,
my friends won't play with me, so I'm like, okay, I guess got to do something else here.
I mean, I had a home league for like 20 years or so before before I entered the industry, and they kicked me out when I started writing for Fangraphs and was whooping their butts. So like,
I think we were all kind of in that place where we all needed a home league, but don't have enough friends who are willing to play against us at that level.
And I mean, the beauty, like, the internet can be, and social media can be, a really crappy place sometimes, but like, it's also a place where you can find your own people, and the ability for all of us to kind of find our own people in our own area, and kind of, bring people together and build, better friendships. It's really, really cool. And I do love, like, I love TGFBI. I love what TGFBI represents, but it represents something different than what Earth does.
Yes.
And I think that it has its own special charm, and I think it's going to continue to grow year over year. And I'm excited for that.
Yeah. And I'm about to get into a little bit of that shortly as well. I was going to touch on one thing. Dustin mentioned the charity aspect of it. I'm going to give a shout out to Chris Baseball Pods. He was very, like, he really wanted to push the charity aspect of it. Not that anybody was opposing it, but it was very important to him. And
I was very anti-charity.
Yeah, but no, I think we have a good balance, because there's definitely people who, say, I want to win money. Like I do want to play for something. Otherwise, it's hard to stay motivated. But the charity aspect is great too. And it was so rewarding getting to give that check to the kids last year in Chicago when we won. I do hope that that's something that everybody in Earth, every league, gets to experience at some point, because it really is, like, that was the coolest thing about it, to be honest with you. Like, I loved, creating the championship belts and everything for the overall champion and for, Glarf champion and all that stuff. But it's that the charity aspect of it is just, it's so cool to see, like, to give that money and know you're making such a big difference in, like, whoever you're giving money to. It doesn't have to be kids, but, whoever you're playing for. That is awesome, and I really hope that you guys all experience that at some point too. So, okay. So with that said, now what can we improve about Earth? What's something that maybe we're struggling with? We kind of mentioned earlier, we're constantly fighting the battle to keep everyone engaged. So Justin, you said it was an issue in your league. Ryan and Dustin, do you guys feel like that was? I mean, there might have been someone at some point. Was it handled? Did you guys talk to someone about any issues, or Well, Sarah won. Sarah just popped in and said charity greater than belts. And I don't think anybody was more excited to get that championship belt than Sarah last year when she won Glarf. But we also played for her charity in Chicago, the Lost Boys, and I know that was special for her. And so. Definitely hope you guys can experience that too in the future, far distant future, after Glarf has won, like, the next 10 to 12 years in a row. But with the keeping everybody engaged and active, is there a way to curb it? Dustin and Ryan, do you guys feel like there were inactive people? Was it handled? What did you guys do? Dustin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, like, once we figured it out, we found I've actually found a replacement pretty quick, just to kind of kind of take over the team. I mean, there's no animosity or anything like that. It's just kind of something that flew under the radar, and we were able to just kind of get somebody else in there. I think part of it's just kind of I think the plus of this is it's getting new people engaged in fantasy baseball, but also fantasy baseball on the NFBC platform, which, let's be honest, if you've never played there before, it can be pretty daunting in terms of how to understand like things like set your lineup 2 times a week and like the fab process and all these other things that we might take for granted that can kind of really be a little bit overwhelming for somebody that's maybe played Yahoo or ESPN or CBS or wherever prior to that. So I think that's kind of increasing that exposure and things like that. But yeah, the inactivity, I mean, it's, whenever you're playing in leagues that are kind of home leagues or lower stakes leagues like this, there is going to be that element. There just is. I mean, and like Justin said earlier, there's big money leagues that have guys that go inactive as well. So it's always going to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think raising the minimum buy-in would help that? Or, I mean, it probably wouldn't completely eradicate it. But let's say that
it wouldn't completely eradicate it. I don't think it would make. I don't think it would make that big of a difference in terms of kind of curbing that. I think it's just something you're going to have, but also too, I think the element of like as Earth keeps going on, you're going to have more people that are in the league again, and you're going to have more people that start to know each other and grow those relationships and things like that. So it'll probably be like people will be paying attention, like, hey, wait a minute, maybe this one of our newer owners has just been inactive for some reason or whatever it is. I think as people just keep playing more and more and more, it'll help kind of curb that. But the exposure is growing. I mean, the weekly standings updates are super cool that all the leagues can track and things like that. So I think over time it's just going to continue to increase.
Ryan, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think in terms of the inactivity, the buy-in, those types of things, I mean, I think you're just always going to run into those types of issues. You never know what's going on in someone's personal life, and there's always going to be things that pop up, and you're not necessarily going to be able to police everything. I think that you have such a wide variety of people. I know that, we have guys in our leagues where it was the first time they've ever been on NFBC, and then you have them competing against people who have multiple main event teams. So, coming up with a reasonable buy-in that sort of fits the group as a whole, I think is going to be, difficult. But one of the things that I'd really like to see, and I think it might be a little bit further down the list of things to chat about here, but trying to get similar draft dates. I think that drafting with similar intel.
Ooh, that's a good point.
When you have guys that are drafting like 6 weeks apart from each other, there's advantages and disadvantages and things like that. So I think if we can kind of come to a smaller period of time where we're getting the drafts in, but what you don't want to happen is for guys to have to leave the league or females to leave the league because, you have such a tight draft schedule that it has to be this weekend every year. And then somebody says, okay, well then I can't come. Right. So I think there needs to be some flexibility. At the same time, it just makes things potentially a little bit skewed in terms of when leagues are drafting and who's drafting when. But overall, I think that things are running pretty smoothly. And as a commissioner, I mean, I think you can kind of tell just looking at the fab list. You just look every week, and if you see that it's a shorter list, you kind of raise an eyebrow and say, what's going on here? Usually we got 30 bids or, player exchanges, and this week it was only 12. Is that just because no one has money, or is it because people aren't paying attention? So I had to go in a couple times and tell people like, hey, I see some guys on your bench that probably shouldn't be there. I'm not an expert, but I don't think Bryce Harper is supposed to be on your bench anymore. So, maybe go in there and fix that. But there's always going to be that. But again, I try not to judge too much. You never know what's going on in someone's life. But I think that overall things have been pretty smooth on the Canadian side, and excited to get back at it with a pretty similar group next year.
All right, Justin, any other issues that you've come across or things that you feel we need to work on from Earth's managerial side?
I mean, I don't necessarily think so. I think maybe and you and I will probably talk about incorporating more Earth stuff into the pod and talking about it a little bit more,
Okay.
and especially in the preseason draft season, because I think that helps spread the word and maybe will spur some extra excitement into, other leagues forming, right? Like, and I think that's what we all want is other areas, other leagues to get excited about, potentially having their own version of Earth. So, but I mean, honestly, I love the camaraderie. I love how everybody gets together. Love what we've been doing. And like I said, can't wait to see it continue to grow.
All right. And so, Ryan, you kind of you hit on something that's one of my last couple bullet points here. And we're talking about what's coming next for Earth. We had, we had thought about the fact that, number one, because I'm in a few of the league's DM Twitter chats, finding draft dates, you mentioned like you don't want people to leave because they aren't available a certain weekend or whatever. The problem with not having a set draft date is that everybody kind of waits too long to figure out what date works for people, and then people end up not being able to make it anyways. And then you're losing a key tenet of Earth, which is the community part, where you're actually getting together in person, not drafting, from afar. I get that things come up, sometimes they want to come, but they just can't. But in general, like, we want to try to get everybody there, for the draft day. It's an important key aspect of this whole thing. So we did talk about when can we set a draft weekend for this. So the difficult part is pretty much all of March is gone because of labor, tout wars, NFBC leagues. They're all drafting all in March. And then Justin has his Potapalooza the last weekend of February / early March. I don't know, whenever, right, Justin?
Yeah, it's gonna be the last week in February.
So this is a weird year in that there's only 3 weekends in February. So because like the Friday that would be the last weekend in February is March 1st. So that's the weekend that Justin was going to do Potapalooza. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it pretty much every year. It'll be like the second and third weekends of February is when we're going to do the Earth drafts. And so this year that will be February 9th and February 16th weekends. But then Justin also said, even though he doesn't want to conflict with Potapalooza, we can make, if those are too early for some people, we can make that as like a last resort. If you can't do the 9th or the 16th, you can do it on that the weekend of March 1st.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, at the end of the day, like, we just want everybody to be able to get together and, like,
yes, that's the most
I think that's what's most important. The dates will get figured out, but if you are thinking about, if you run an Earth League and you're listening to this, or if you are thinking about maybe potentially trying to start your own version of an Earth League, we're going to try to keep it. We're going to try to set the ADP for these kind of leagues and do it a little bit earlier, which I know will be frustrating to some people who late, like Dave.
God.
But
I don't start drafting until mid-March, so this is going to be a big adjustment for me. But I'm willing to do it to help out whatever makes the most sense for everybody else. So Chris Baseball Pods had brought that up. He was like, look, if we do ours first, we're setting the NFBC ADP. Like, we're going to be that, like, there is no ADP before us. We're going to set that. And, that's one way to kind of put Earth more on the map. Because that will be the ADP that everybody sees, when they're first starting their drafts in February and March. So I kind of like that idea. And honestly, we need to have a set draft weekend or weekends in that range, because if we don't, it's just chaos and too many people end up missing out. If they know that they have to keep that second and third weekend of February open, then at least we, you have that foresight, okay, this is when I need to be available for this. So yeah, we absolutely thought about the dates. So hopefully that works for you guys. Hopefully, I know this will be like the transition year where hopefully we can bring everybody together on that.
And of course we have the series in Korea in March 20th, like a week before the actual start of the actual season, to kind of screw us up even more. So it's just, love MLB.
We can't have nice things. Like, it always has to be difficult.
Yeah.
But so Ryan, I think that should take care of that issue of where teams are drafting way later than others.
Awesome. Love it.
And then the other thing is what Justin mentioned. I'm going to be making a more concerted effort to reach out to people to see, can we add more Earth Leagues? Because a couple of years ago, we had some that were pretty close. There's one in Florida that almost became a league. There was one in Denver, a couple other areas that I can't remember right now. But, I'm always looking to expand things. We just didn't really have the capability last year with everything else going on. But, we want to keep trying to grow this thing bigger and bigger, and just kind of keep making Earth just a bigger and better place for all of us.
Nice.
But yeah,
I think
any comments there?
Yeah, we got to cut Canada into 2 leagues.
I was actually just going to say that. I mean, we have a pretty big geographical area up here, so trying to get everybody together into one room for a draft can be difficult. So if there's anybody out there on the West Coast especially who's looking to maybe get together and form a league, reach out to me, guy_Rye22, and we'll see if we can get something sorted out. We can maybe divvy up some spots here across the Great North.
And if you are looking for people to join a potential Earth League, or if you're, like I said, a current commissioner and looking for people, make sure you reach out to me, because I have a lot of phone numbers and I can search by area codes if you give me the area codes you're looking for and tell you, hey, these people might be in. I did it for somebody this year. Someone reached out to me and was like, hey, who's in my area? And I was like, all right, give me your area codes. And I went and found people, because, I've got, 600 phone numbers from TGFBI participants that I can reach out to.
Coincidentally, Justin's also sent out that number of bikini pics of him in a bikini, so be careful who you give your number out to. I'm just saying.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, appreciate it. Or you can also reach out to me. I have put together a lot of leagues, and always willing to help in any way possible. I have a bunch of people on my list as well. But really, you reach out to any of us, we'll all talk. We'll all figure out together kind of who's out there, and we'll put out some tweets, and we'll find people. We'll find the right kind of people too. We're looking for people who are going to be active, who want to compete, who want to play for charity. We're looking for certain who want to draft live in person. These are all important things. So this is the kind of person we're looking for. So, but yeah, I'm really excited to see what comes next. And the other thing I forgot to mention is I will also be working on an Earth website where I'm going to have, team histories. I'm going to have all the players who've played, who's won championships, your trophies that you guys have, your logos, all of that stuff. I want it all on the website so that people can look it up and kind of see, oh, this is what Earth is all about. Because one of my favorite parts about this is the local trophies that are so unique and different. And I love to see what people come up with. Like the people in Wharf took a Waffle House plate and then made it into a big chain, like a rapper would hang. It's fucking great. Ryan, I don't even know actually what is yours, because your logo is hilarious, but I don't know what your trophy even is.
I think we'll do the same thing this year as last year. We kept it pretty simple, just in terms of trying to keep as much funds as we could towards the actual prize pool. But we had a Canadian-made hardwood, basically hardball bat with a Canadian inscription and insignia of the flag and everything on it, with the winner's name and everything. So something that just can be kind of, mounted in the man cave. And cool. I'll take a look, as the winner this year. Maybe I just beef it up a little bit, for myself with the overall championship, get a little extra inscription or something on there. But just something nice that you can tuck away at home and have on the wall for a bit. No belts or anything, but I still think it was pretty well received last year. So we'll do it again this year.
Cool. No, that's awesome. I love all the unique stuff, but I don't know, for whatever reason, Glarf really wanted a wrestling belt, and they loved the idea of a double belt for the champion. So I was like, okay, if you guys want that, we can do that. But there's definitely some unique things out there. Also, shout out to Wharf Commissioner JT, who is amazing at building stuff. He built this Game of Thrones style little rotating. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's like a little rotating.
You haven't seen it.
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. This is why we need the website, man. People need to see this thing. It's amazing. It rotates around on this thing, and he built this is out of wood, and it looks like a Game of Thrones thing with a bunch of bats coming out of it, and it's really cool.
Whoa.
And that's what the winner of WRF gets every year.
Yeah, check
Awesome.
this out.
Right.
Yeah. So I just really want to highlight all this stuff because there's so many cool aspects of this, and put the charities on there and all this stuff so that we've got all the information out there that people can look it up and see what charity is this league playing for? Where does this league draft? We'll have that information on there. So it's going to take some time, but I've got a lot of it planned out. I just need a little bit of help from someone. If anybody out there knows anybody who's like a web developer or who knows how to build a website, I will use some funds from the Earth, that we have donated. I'm imagining it might be a little bit of money to get set up, but then like the yearly, cost of it shouldn't be too bad. So I think it's definitely worth doing though.
Agreed.
So if you guys know anyone, let me know.
Not I.
No. I got nothing for you.
This is going to go out to other people, so those people can let me know. Get a hold of me at RunDMCD. Make sure you add that D. Let me know. And Justin, I think you can take us home.
Yeah. Ryan, want to remind everybody again where you can reach on social media, and if you have anything to plug, go ahead and plug it.
Yeah, I got nothing to plug, but you can find me at guy_rye22. I did just want to have one final last shout out to my boy Rob D. Rob DiPietro is the reason I started playing in the NFBC, and he was actually willing to and nice enough to post some of my written work that I did a couple of years ago up on his site for the Deadpool hitter. So I'm not sure if it's still there at all, but I wrote a couple pieces. But he was the reason. I listened to his podcast and thought, hey, if this guy can do it, why can't I do it? And I jumped in, started talking with people like yourself, Dave, and we are where we are now, a few years in, and just loving it, loving the NFBC, and glad to be growing member of the community. But overall, I wouldn't have been able to do it without Rob. So big thanks to him and for opening up a space for me to put some thoughts out there on digital paper, we'll call it. But I owe him a lot for that, and really appreciate it. And Justin, for you as well, and letting people like us jump into TGFBI and these Earth Leagues. It's it's really a good way to grow the quote unquote sport. And I think it's, we're doing good things, and we're just going to continue to push further. So thanks.
Absolutely. Dustin, remind everybody where you can reach and plug all your work.
At Dustin L. McComas on Twitter. You will probably see a lot of really good high school baseball video on my Twitter feed. That's kind of my job, but also a lot of sports general takes. Although things I've kind of tamed down. Having two kids, like you don't have much time for firing off, margarita fueled Twitter rants and things like that. So, but every now and then you'll get a good one. But at Dustin L. McComas on Twitter, and one of my most recent tweets recapping my season, I have declared that if you are in a draft with me next season, I will not under any condition draft Tim Anderson. So just know if you want,
I need to write that on a chalkboard 100 times.
Yeah, if you want Tim Anderson in near my league and you're drafting near me, you can have him. Trust me.
Oh my God, what a disaster. Oh man, well I already gave my Twitter handle, so I'm good.
All right, you can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. Friends of Fantasy Benefits on Twitter at Fantasy Benefits. I'm still doing Sleeper in the Bust. Dave and I are going to talk about an off-season schedule. Won't be necessarily weekly, at least for the first month or for the next month or so, but we'll get some episodes in, and then you can read my written work this off-season at Fangraphs. I'm done writing at Fantasy Pros at least for the next couple months until I think they get their baseball back up and running. So yeah, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. For Dave, Ryan, Dustin, and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball off-season.